You can't soar with eagles if you're walking with pigeons. That's not just a clever phrase. It's a truth most people ignore. We've all heard that who you spend time with matters, but very few take the time to evaluate just how much it matters. Proximity is power. That means the people you're close to, their mindset, their energy, their habits, will, over time, shape your own. You don't even have to try. Just by being near them, you begin to reflect them. You've probably noticed this without realizing it. Think back to the last time you spent extended time around someone negative. Someone who always finds the problem in every solution. Someone who complains more than they contribute. You walked away from that conversation feeling heavier, didn't you? Even if you didn't agree with them, their energy lingered. Now compare that to someone who's passionate, focused, and driven. You left that conversation feeling clearer, inspired, even if you were tired when it began. That's not accidental. That's proximity at work. The people around you are not neutral. They're either pulling you forward or holding you back. There is no middle ground. If you're trying to elevate your life, your mindset, your career, your health, your purpose, you must ask yourself one question. Am I surrounded by people who support that growth? Because if the answer is no, then every step you're trying to take forward is being silently resisted by the atmosphere you're in. Too often, we try to make massive changes while staying in the same environment. You try to break bad habits, but your friends still feed them. You try to speak differently, think differently, live differently, but you're stuck around people who mock ambition, who laugh at discipline, who roll their eyes when you talk about goals. That disconnect doesn't inspire transformation. It stifles it. It makes you second-guess yourself. It makes you shrink. But here's the truth. We grow into the people we surround ourselves with. The fastest way to change your life is to change your circle. You want to think bigger, get around big thinkers. You want to be disciplined, hang out with people who train like it's oxygen. You want to build something meaningful, connect with people who are already building. Their standards will raise yours. Their pace will challenge you. Their perspective will expand you, because greatness isn't just taught. It's caught. It rubs off. You learn through observation, through osmosis, through environment. That's why proximity is power. You might think you're strong enough to resist the pull of a weak circle, but the truth is, no one is immune. Even the most disciplined person will bend if the environment is out of alignment. Not immediately, but gradually. You stop sharing your dreams because no one around you understands them. You stop pushing yourself because no one else is pushing themselves. You start settling slowly, quietly, unconsciously, until one day you wake up wondering why the fire you once had has turned into smoke. Now think about what happens when you're surrounded by people who get it. People who talk goals like they talk weather. People who treat discipline like a lifestyle, not a sacrifice. You start to feel different. You speak with more certainty. You show up with more focus, not because someone told you to, but because that's just the norm in that space. Greatness becomes less of a concept and more of a daily practice. Proximity also gives you access to new standards. You start realizing that the things you thought were enough are just the starting point for someone operating at a higher level. You stop calling average okay because you've seen what exceptional looks like up close. It raises the floor of your life. It lifts the ceiling too. Even the conversations are different. Small talk turns into strategy. Complaints turn into creative problem solving. You no longer feel guilty about wanting more. You feel supported in it. You stop asking for permission and start seeking alignment. That's the power of being near the right people. They remind you of what you're capable of, not with their words, but with their walk. Just by being who they are, they inspire who you can become. Proximity isn't about fame or money or prestige. It's about alignment. It's about being close to those who live at the level you aspire to, those who demand more from life and from themselves. Because when you're surrounded by people like that, mediocrity can't breathe, excuses can't survive. Comfort zones don't feel so comfortable anymore, and that's where transformation begins. Energy doesn't need permission to enter a room. It announces itself. Before a word is spoken, before a gesture is made, the energy of a person has already spoken volumes. You've felt it. Walk into a room full of inspired people, and your chest lifts before your mind catches up. You start breathing differently, standing taller, even thinking more clearly, and you don't even know why. That's not coincidence. That's not random. That's energy doing what it does best. It transfers. Energy is contagious. You pick it up from the people you sit with, talk with, work with, and live with. And most people don't even realize it's happening. They think they're just in a mood or having an off day, but if they zoomed out, they'd see it's not just their mood. It's the environment they've been sitting in, the energy they've been absorbing without even knowing it. Sit with people who complain all the time, and eventually you'll find things to complain about, even if life's going well. Sit with people who doubt everything, and suddenly your boldest ideas start to feel unrealistic. That's the power of negative energy. It doesn't just stay in them, it travels, it transfers, and it lingers, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days. Now, reverse it. Sit with people who radiate belief, who don't just talk about faith and purpose, but walk in it. Who act like the future is something they can shape with their bare hands. You'll feel it. Your spine straightens. Your language shifts. You speak with conviction you didn't even know you had. That's the transfer of energy at work. Not through coaching, not through advice, but through presence alone. There's a reason the best athletes, leaders, and creatives are deliberate about who they spend time with. It's not about ego. It's not about status. It's about protection, protecting their energy like it's a resource, because it is. Energy fuels focus. Energy drives decisions. Energy creates momentum. And just like you wouldn't pour sugar into a gas tank, you shouldn't allow toxic energy into your space. When you're around high energy, purpose-driven individuals, you start to move differently. You think in terms of possibility. You stop bracing for failure and start preparing for impact. You feel less alone even when you're on your grind. Because their presence reminds you you're not the only one fighting for something bigger, and that knowing that shared intensity recharges you in ways sleep never could. Energy doesn't lie. People can fake positivity. They can say the right words, put on the right face. But energy tells the truth. You can feel when someone's been through the fire and come out stronger. You can feel when someone believes in something deeper than applause or approval. Their energy carries weight. It's magnetic. It shifts the air in the room. That's why some people don't need to say much. You just feel different around them. More clear, more alive, more capable. What most people don't realize is that energy also affects your inner conversation. The words you speak to yourself. When you surround yourself with those operating from a higher frequency, your inner dialogue begins to change. You start hearing yourself say things like, "Why not me?" instead of "What if I fail?" You start approaching problems with curiosity instead of fear. You start welcoming challenge because their energy has redefined what challenge even means. The wrong energy will have you questioning your gifts. The right energy will remind you they're real. The wrong energy will feed your insecurity. The right energy will reflect your potential back at you, over and over until you can't deny it anymore. And that's the shift. That's when you begin moving from survival mode into vision mode, from self-doubt into self-trust. From noise into clarity. It's not magic, it's alignment. It's the natural result of being in the right room with the right people who carry the right frequency. You begin to rise, not because they pull you, but because their energy activates what's already inside you. That's the power of proximity, yes, but more specifically, that's the power of transferable energy. It doesn't push you. It wakes you up. It reminds you. It reclaims the part of you that you buried to make other people comfortable. One of the hardest things you will ever do on the journey to becoming your best self is to look around and realize that not everyone can come with you. It sounds harsh, it sounds cold, but it's the truth. Not because you're better than them, but because you're growing differently. And the truth is growth changes relationships. Progress disrupts comfort, and purpose has a way of exposing what no longer fits. At some point, you're going to have to look at your circle and ask the uncomfortable question, is this connection feeding me, or is it draining me? Not emotionally, not socially, but spiritually. Are these people speaking life into you, or constantly questioning your fire? Are they supporting your vision, or subtly making you feel guilty for having one? Auditing your circle is not an act of betrayal. It's an act of survival. You can't build something meaningful if the people closest to you are tearing at the foundation. You can't move at the speed of purpose if you're tied to anchors disguised as friends. Sometimes it's not the enemy on the outside. Sometimes it's the comfort on the inside that's slowing you down. And it doesn't mean they're bad people. It doesn't mean they're intentionally holding you back. Some people simply can't see past their own fears. They can't support you in your boldness because it challenges their complacency. They don't know how to dream bigger, so they label your ambition as doing too much. They don't understand sacrifice, so they call your discipline obsession. They don't believe in themselves, so they project that disbelief onto you. And if you're not careful, you'll shrink yourself to stay connected. You'll downplay your progress to make others comfortable. You'll stop talking about your vision just to avoid eye rolls and side comments. That's how dreams die, not through failure, but through compromise, through settling for the approval of people who were never meant to understand your journey. There comes a point when you have to stop apologizing for evolving. You have to stop explaining your growth to people committed to standing still. You weren't put on this earth to babysit other people's insecurities. Your loyalty cannot become your limitation. That's why it is necessary, and it has to be honest. You can't keep people around just because they've been around. Time doesn't equal alignment. History doesn't guarantee harmony. Just because someone was with you when you started doesn't mean they're built for where you're going. Some people are chapters. That doesn't mean you erase them. It just means you stop trying to make a chapter into the whole story. And yes, it might hurt, especially when the ones you love the most don't support you the way you hoped they would. Especially when you realize that love and alignment are not always the same thing. You can love someone and still outgrow them. You can care deeply and still choose distance. Boundaries don't make you cold, they make you clear. You're allowed to protect your peace. You're allowed to prioritize your purpose. You're allowed to walk away from what no longer reflects who you're becoming. There's a difference between being loyal and being limited. Loyalty is powerful, but not when it keeps you stuck. Not when it keeps you quiet. Not when it keeps you doubting yourself. You owe it to yourself to be surrounded by people who remind you of your greatness, not your guilt. People who challenge you to rise, not stay stagnant. People who clap when you win, not question why you're winning. Doing this work, this audit, it's not about cutting people off in bitterness. It's about moving with clarity. About being intentional with your space, your energy, your focus. Because the people closest to you don't just influence your mood. They influence your mindset, your decisions, your identity. They either water your potential or slowly dry it out. And you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't grow in a garden full of weeds. You can't become who you were meant to be while staying surrounded by people who only know the older version of you. The version who played small, the version who stayed silent, the version who made herself available for everyone except herself. Too often we confuse greatness with visibility. We think if it's not loud, it's not powerful. If it's not trending, it's not real. We've been conditioned to believe that greatness always comes with a spotlight, a stage, a following. But that's a lie. Greatness doesn't always wear a microphone. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's unseen. Sometimes it happens in the background where no one claps, no one posts, and no one notices except the person who refuses to quit. You've seen greatness and probably didn't even realize it. It's the janitor who shows up at 5 a.m. with a sense of pride in every sweep of the floor. It's the nurse who stays an extra hour because her patient needed comfort, not just medicine. It's the father working 2 jobs with swollen hands and tired eyes just to keep food on the table. That's greatness, not because the world sees it, but because it's done with heart, with purpose, and with consistency. We live in an age where performance is often mistaken for purpose, where curated images and viral moments are confused for value. But real greatness doesn't need to be shared to be significant. It's not validated by likes, followers, or attention. It's validated by impact, by integrity, by the decision to keep going even when no one's watching. The most powerful people are often the least recognized. They don't move for applause. They move because they're called. Their work may never make the headlines, but their presence changes lives. They don't need to be the loudest voice in the room because their actions speak volumes. They don't need a platform to lead because their life is the message. You don't need to know their name to feel their influence. That teacher who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. That was greatness. That friend who showed up when you were falling apart and said, "You don't have to do this alone." That was greatness. That mentor who poured wisdom into you without ever asking for anything in return. That was greatness, and not a single one of them needed a camera to prove it. The danger is when we start idolizing only the visible. When we start thinking the only dreams worth chasing are the ones that come with attention. But the truth is, some of the most meaningful dreams, the ones that shift generations, happen in silence. They happen in homes, in late nights, in quiet sacrifices that never get mentioned. That's where the real transformation lies. In the places the world doesn't always applaud. Don't fall into the trap of thinking your greatness has to look like someone else's. Your journey is sacred. Your impact is unique. And the measure of your life is not how many people see you. It's how many lives you touch. Whether it's 1 or 1 million, purpose is purpose. If you're showing up with love, with excellence, with authenticity, you're already walking in greatness. Stop disqualifying yourself because you're not where someone else is. You don't know what they had to go through to get there. You don't know what compromises were made, what pressures they carry, what emptiness might exist behind the image. Fame is not fulfillment. Visibility is not validation. What's seen isn't always what's strong. The strongest people are the ones who wake up and do what they're called to do over and over, even when there's no recognition, no celebration, no audience. The mother raising children with values and strength is building a future. The coach pushing kids to believe in themselves is creating confidence that outlasts any scoreboard. The quiet soul who battles their demons daily and still finds the strength to help someone else, that's not weakness. That's unshakable greatness. We need to stop chasing significance in all the wrong places. We need to stop measuring ourselves by how loud our lives are and start asking how true they are. True greatness isn't about being known. It's about being real, being present, being committed to something bigger than ego. That's where the fire lives, not in the spotlight, but in the soul. You don't need to look into a crystal ball to predict someone's future. Just look at their circle, look at the conversations they're having, the standards they're living by, the values they're surrounded with every day. You become who you hang around, not all at once, not overnight, but gradually, subtly, inevitably. The energy, the expectations, the mindset. It all starts to seep in. And before you know it, their habits become your habits, their language becomes your language, and their limits start to look like your limits. It doesn't matter how strong-willed you are or how determined your vision is. Proximity changes people. It shapes what you think is possible. It molds what you consider normal. If everyone around you is average, playing it safe, afraid to grow, it's only a matter of time before you stop reaching and start rationalizing. Not because you lost your dream, but because the environment stopped supporting it. That's the power of influence. Influence isn't just someone telling you what to do. It's the silent permission they give you to settle or to rise. If you're surrounded by people who gossip, you'll talk more and think less. If you're surrounded by people who hustle with integrity, you'll feel lazy doing anything less. It's not about copying anyone. It's about resonance. When you're in the presence of people who operate on a higher frequency, something in you wakes up. You start to realize there's another level. You start to realize you've been thinking too small, moving too slow, and giving yourself too many excuses. It's not always about being pushed. Sometimes it's just about exposure. Being in the room with people who are doing more than you forces you to confront the parts of yourself you've let sit idle. It reminds you that potential means nothing if it's not activated. It holds a mirror up to your life and says, "Are you proud of this?" And not in judgment, but in invitation. It invites you to rise. It calls something deeper out of you. But here's the catch. You can't rise if you're surrounded by people who are committed to staying the same. If everyone around you has already given up, settled, or stopped dreaming, you'll feel guilty for wanting more. You'll water yourself down to stay accepted. You'll downplay your ambition to keep the peace, and eventually you'll start mistaking stagnation for stability. You'll start believing that playing it safe is wisdom, when really it's fear in disguise. You have to choose your circle with the same intention you use to choose your goals. You have to ask yourself, do the people around me reflect where I'm going or where I've been? If your circle isn't challenging you, stretching you, inspiring you, then it's caging you. Sometimes we stay connected to people because of comfort, because of loyalty, or because of shared history. But comfort doesn't build greatness. Loyalty without alignment leads to resentment, and history alone doesn't qualify someone for access to your future. If you're serious about growing, you need to find people who think bigger. People who don't laugh at your goals because they're too busy chasing their own. People who hold you accountable, not because they want to control you, but because they believe in your capacity. People who clap when you win and still love you when you fail, but never let you make excuses. You need to be in rooms where you feel challenged, not coddled, where your comfort zone gets questioned, where excellence is the baseline, not the exception. That kind of environment pulls greatness out of you because it refuses to let you settle for less. It makes you uncomfortable in the best way. It forces growth, and growth, real growth, doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in relationship, in accountability, in partnership with people who won't let you forget who you said you wanted to become. If you want to change your life, change who you listen to. Change who you text when you have an idea. Change who you call when you're tired, because those voices shape your choices. Those faces shape your pace. And over time, that circle becomes your compass, your mirror, and your reality. You don't rise alone. You rise with those who remind you how high you were born to go. You don't need more motivation. You need better alignment. You don't need to work harder. You need to work around the right people. Because greatness is not something you chase alone. It's something that gets unlocked when you're planted in the right soil, in the right environment, around the right energy. Your circle is either your cage or your catalyst. It's either stretching you or shrinking you. And every day you have a choice. Will you keep entertaining what drains you, or will you pursue what develops you? Proximity is power. Energy is transferable. You have the right and the responsibility to audit your circle without guilt. Because greatness doesn't always shine in the spotlight. It thrives in authenticity, in quiet strength, in purpose-driven living. And you become who you hang around. So if you want to change your life, start with your surroundings. Build a life where the atmosphere reflects the future you're creating, not the past you're escaping. Surround yourself with greatness on purpose, without apology and with unwavering clarity.